Welcome to the Hidden Corners. Tonight we're going to be reading a story sent in by one of our listeners. I want to give a big thank you to those of you that have sent us stories. And if you'd like us to read your story, you can email it to thehiddencorners.story@gmail.com. The short story tonight is The Pond Monster by Rob Bowers. Rob is the author of a book called Campfire Tales from Uncle Rob. His books are available on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description so you can check out his site. Rob is currently working on Volume 2 of the Campfire Tales, so be sure to watch for the release of that as well. I want to thank Rob for sending this in to us, and I hope you'll enjoy the story.
The Pond Monster by Rob Bowers. Well, this event happened in the late 1980s or the early 1990s. I'm not sure on the exact date. A good friend of mine, his name was Red, and I stopped one day at a local service station on our way out of town to work. Another acquaintance of ours worked there. His name was Don. Well, Don was washing someone's windshield. I told you it was a long time ago. And he said hello to us as we entered the station for a cup of coffee. On the way back out to our truck, Don told Red that it was too pretty a day to be working and they should just say to heck with it and go fishing. To which Red replied, "Sounds good to me. Where should we go?" Well, Don replied, "Any place but Bankston's," and they both laughed. Red and I got in the truck with Red driving, and we headed out of town. That's when I asked, "What's wrong with Bankston's? I always heard that's a pretty good farm pond to fish." "Oh, it is," Red told me, "but Don said he saw a monster out there one night." Well, I laughed at him and I said, "A monster? Come on." "No, that's what Don said," Red told me. "Scared him so bad he won't go back out there." "Seriously?" I thought this was a joke and I was missing the punchline. "That's what Don said," Red told me again. "Well, what kind of monster did he see?" I asked, still not buying in. "A sea monster," Red stated. "A what? Get out of here." "Well, I guess it's a pond monster since it was in that pond," Red laughed. "But he says it looked like the Loch Ness Monster." "A pond monster?" Well, I didn't point out that Loch Ness is a lake and it's in Scotland, and this was a farm pond in Oklahoma. So I guess that would make it a pond monster, I thought, confusing myself even more. "So what happened?" I asked. "What'd this thing look like? Was it after dawn? What was it doing? How big was it?" I had a lot of questions, and now I wanted to get a look at this pond. "I didn't see it," Red told me, "but I was there." "Well, you were there?" I asked him. "How did he see it and you not?" Red laughed again. "You got to understand," he explained. This place is way out in the country. It has huge fish in it. Catfish mostly, real rod benders. Well, now I wanted to see this pond even more. "Now, what are you doing after work?" I asked him. "Let's go." "Nah, we'll have to wait for a while." What have you got to do instead?" I asked him, thinking he had some chores lined up. "Well, we need to wait until well after dark." "After dark?" I asked. "Why? Do the big ones out there bite better after dark?" "I'm not sure I can find that place in the daylight," Red said with a smirk. "Well, now that doesn't make sense," I told him. "I've only been there twice," he admitted, "both times at night." "Okay, but still—" "Look," he said, "let me explain." "I wish you would," I told him, laughing. "Well, the old man that owns the place," he started off. "Will he let us fish?" I interrupted. "Well, that's the thing," he said. "The old man that owns the place won't let anyone fish. So you have to sneak on the place. At night." Oh, damn, I thought. I wasn't sure if I was cool with that. Sneaking onto some place without permission was not my thing. "Well, this old man," Red continued, "he feels these fish. He has names for them. They're like pets to him. At least that's what the guys say. If one of his fish turns up missing, he knows someone has snuck in and caught one. Word is, if he catches you," he foams at the mouth, "they say he has shot at guys too." Wow. That's all I could think to say. "Yeah," Red said, nodding in agreement. "Years ago, Don and I snuck out there one night. We were after some of those big catfish. Well, we walked through the pasture and down the hill to the pond. The old man's house was up on the hill opposite the way we came in, so he could see part of the pond from up there. So we used no lights. We got down to the pond and we separated. I went one way down the bank, Dawn went the other way. Now, we'd been there about a half hour, and we'd had no bites from any fish. All of a sudden, I heard the darndest commotion, thrashing around and stuff in the weeds and the brush around the pond. I'm thinking either it's the old man, because he's found us, or Don had a snake crawl up his leg. But here comes Don. It's dark and I can barely see him, but he comes, practically running. He's out of breath. "Let's get the hell out of here," Don says, gasping. "What?" I ask. "What's the matter? Is the old man coming?" "Come on," Don says over his shoulder as he's headed up the hill. We got back to the pickup and got the hell out of there. All the time I'm asking Don, "What the hell? Did the old man see us?" Well, he finally told me that he had seen a monster in the pond. "Wow," I said to Red. "Did he say what it looked like or how big it was?" "Nah," Red shook his head. "Don said it looked like the Loch Ness Monster. It had a head and a neck sticking up out of the water. He won't talk about it, and he won't go back out there." "That's weird," I said, wondering what he could have seen. "Well, you still want to go?" Red asked me. "Hell yes," I told him. "All this monster stuff had me excited. So did the big fish. I'm not scared. I want to go." Red laughed. "I'm not scared either. I think Don got nervous that night and made that monster stuff up so I would leave with him. I've been wanting to go back there, but never did." "Well, maybe we'll catch a few big ones." I was eager as hell. "And maybe see this monster." Red chuckled. "That night was years ago. If there was something besides fish in that pond, like a monster, it has to be dead or gone by now. I still want to go," I said firmly. "Okay, I'll be by to pick you up around 11 tonight. Just bring one rod and reel, very little tackle, and a stringer. And bring something to use for bait," he told me. "Oh, and bring a 5-gallon bucket if you have one." "Okay," I agreed. What's the bucket for?" "To put your stuff in and to sit on," he told me, like that was a dumb question. True to his word, Red showed up right around 11 p.m. A small part of me wondered if he would be a no-show, kind of like a snipe hunt, with me left holding the bag, or in this case, the fishing rod and bucket. But I loaded my bucket and rod, and off we went. "So what kind of bait did you bring?" Red asked me. "Well, I got worms and grasshoppers," I told him. "Nice," he said. "I got liver and shrimp. That makes us a nice variety. There are supposed to be huge largemouth bass there, too. I've got a little box with a few lures in it. I may give them a try, too." "Well, sounds good," I told him. We drove for about half an hour. Suddenly, Red shut off his headlights. "We're getting close," Red told me, "and we don't want to take a chance of that old man seeing our headlights." Well, I was straining my eyes trying to see where we were when Red pulled over to the side of a dirt road and stopped. "This is it," he announced. Well, we both got out and shut our doors quickly and quietly. We grabbed our rods and their buckets, and we crossed over the barbed wire fence. "This way," Red said softly. "Follow me." Well, we walked for about 15 minutes. We passed through some sagebrush and around some plum thickets. The moon was about half full. It was partly cloudy that night, and when the moon wasn't behind a cloud, and after our eyes became accustomed to the dark, we could actually see fairly well. At some point, we topped a rise, and Red stopped. "The pond is down there," he pointed with his fishing rod, "and way over there is the old man's house." Well, looking around, I could see below us the shine of the water in the pond and the dark spots of a few trees around the edges. Beyond that, and on the bit of a hill opposite us, I could make out a house and a few outbuildings. There was one yard light over there. It lit up a portion of the ground and a small part of the wall of the house. Well, Red took off down the slope towards the pond, and I followed him. We made it to the pond's edge, and there was some brush and tall weeds along the edge, and a few small trees. "There are some cattails over this way," Red whispered, "and I'm going over to them. Don't stray too far in case we have to run for it." And he moved off to my right. Well, I looked around my immediate area, and I found a clear spot on the bank. I baited my hook with a big grasshopper. Not the easiest thing to do in the dark, but I managed it. And I made a cast. I thought it was about 50 feet out there. The grasshopper and the lead sinker hit with a plunk. I could just make out the expanding ripples, so I had a pretty good idea where my line was. So I sat my rod down, turned my bucket over, and I sat on it. I picked up my rod and, by feel only, took up the slack in my line. I waited. Well, that's what fishermen do. I waited for the tug of a bite. I wanted to set the hook on one of the big fish that were supposed to live in this pond. My senses strained to see and hear everything possible. My eyes constantly darted to the single dim light visible up on the opposite hill. I waited for maybe 20 minutes, and I had no bites. Then I heard something. I heard a splash. And then I heard a peculiar sound. It was a bloop, 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 bloop. What the hell is that, I wondered? Is that a fish, or was a turtle making that sound? The sound was out in front of me, but I couldn't tell how far. Then the sound faded away. Well, I heard it again. It was a gloop, 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 gloop. This time it was over in the direction Red had gone, maybe out in front of him. Was he making that sound? There it was again. Bloop, 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 bloop. I was straining my eyes to see and listening intently as the sound faded away again. Suddenly there was a rustle in the weeds, and Red was there, just a few feet from me. "Quit clowning around," he hissed at me. "What?" I hissed back. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here." "Are you making that noise?" he asked me. "No," I told him, "and I thought that was you." "It's not me," he stated. "Not me either," I told him. "Well, cut it out," he said in a stage whisper voice, and turned back, and he disappeared into the dark. Well, he's messing with me, I was thinking. Well, it wasn't going to work. I was not going to freak out. Soon after, though, that sound come again. It was just that bloop, 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 bloop. And then a small but discernible splash. "Damn it, Red," I was thinking. "I know that's you." But then Red was there near me again. He had his bucket with him this time. He sat down close to me and cast his line out. He looked over at me and said softly, "Now do it, asshole." "Do what?" I whispered. "I'm telling you that is not me." Soon we both heard it again, and there it was. Bloop, 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 bloop. Now we both knew it was not the other person making the noise. "I thought that was you," I told him, "fishing some kind of topwater plug like a jitterbug or something like that." Well, I could barely see him, just shaking his head no. "No, I haven't even tried a plug on," he stated. "I thought that was you screwing around." "No way," I told him. Well, we heard it again. Bloop, 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 bloop. Both of us leaned forward, trying to see and hear something more. Suddenly, out in front of us, maybe 25 feet, we saw it. The moon chose that very moment to peek out from behind the clouds. The moonlight shone out on the surface of the pond, and there it was. It was moving from our right to left out in front of us, a head and a neck sticking up out of the water. It stuck up about 18 to 24 inches from the surface. The pond was calm. It was smooth as glass, in fact. There was no body visible, just a neck, and on top of that, a small head. The thing left a wake behind it as it moved along. The head was moving side to side a bit as it moved, as though it was searching for something, maybe something to eat. As it cruised by us, we heard that now familiar sound, that bloop, 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 bloop. The thing disappeared into the dark, and the bloop sound faded with it. We sat there stunned for a few moments. Then Red leaned real close to me and asked in a low voice, "You about ready to go?" Yeah, I answered. Well, both of us reeled in record time, threw everything in our buckets, and got the hell out of there. We spoke not one word to each other until we crawled over the fence. And when we put our stuff in the bed of the pickup, I asked Red, "What in the hell was that?" "Damned if I know," Red answered, "but Don was right. There is something in that pond." Well, Red and I discussed this event many times over the following years, and I recall that I was always the one who brought it up. We both agreed that it wasn't a water bird. It was too big to be a duck, and it wasn't a goose. When a goose swims by, you can clearly see its body. Well, we saw no body, just the neck and the head. We saw no feet or fins, and we saw no tail. We both thought it was something alive, and it was swimming, but its method of propulsion was a mystery. Well, we tossed around the idea that it was something the old man who owned the place had rigged up to scare away fishermen. But if that's the case, well, how did he do it? If it was indeed something rigged up to scare people away, I can say one thing for sure. It worked, because we never went back. Now, when fishing spots were discussed from then on, Red and I agreed, and Dawn too, I guess. We would fish any place but Bankston's.